Hello. Good day, Mr. Becha. Can you hear me?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good. Thank you for joining. I noticed the class is quite scanty. Please, if it's possible, I would like for you to help me drop a notification in your group, letting others know that we are starting class now.
All right, I'll do that, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. Can we all hear me? Hello, good
Hello,
evening, everyone.
hello, Dennis. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm very fine, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
It's my
Thank you to
pleasure.
everyone who has joined
So,
for.
yeah, I have a couple of comments to quickly make. In anticipation of our class today, I consider we have three. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I can see that we have three. Okay, I think more people are joining. So I think there are two things, as I said. The first thing is, I wanted to ask or kind of inquire how many participants are we supposed to have ordinarily, on a normal day, of our discussion regarding, AI. I mean, this particular is a course or session. So then the second question, the second uh, thing I wanted to say is in terms of I think we should go ahead with the presentation first. Then after the presentation, since I think I guess I'm the only facilitator today, right? So after the presentation, then we can go ahead, I can go ahead um to kind of elaborate and give my own comments as well, if that's fine.
All right,
So
thank you
back to
so
the
much,
first
Mr.
question. How many people are we supposed to have? I mean, back to the first question.
Well, expecting 30 plus people in class,
Sorry,
usually class is within that range. I say we're expecting 30 plus people in class.
30 plus.
Yes, class is actually within that range. I am sure we'll be having more people join us soon.
Okay.
So we're just trying to get as many people on board as we can. So welcome to
Okay.
the mentees who joined in. Please, we would like to kindly, or I would like to kindly ask that we reach out to our co-mentees that are not here, right, so that we can have more people joining. All right, we're actually starting the session right about now, and we
So
don't intend very, very long in the session. So we'll be starting with presentation first before Mr. Ridwan comes to give us the discuss for today.
so
So
yeah, just sorry to cut you short again, because the reason I ask how many people we're expecting is so we don't have a lot of people missing out. So 30 is a lot. So if we could have at least half of that class, I think that would be unless I would recommend or suggest adjourning probably to tomorrow same time. That's if you can't have half of the class. I mean, if that's okay with everybody, because I know many people have actually probably they have a lot of things to do, and then they actually sacrifice that time to be here now. So just let me know what you think.
okay, all right, so please, I think I want to ask the class if it's still in their if they still want to have the class today or if they feel we should have it tomorrow, same time tomorrow.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I believe you can hear me.
That is
Hello, good evening. Raise up.
Okay. Yeah, on my end, I would have really loved for it to be held today, right? Because that's speaking from group two, because we had to adjust a lot of things to be presented.
Mm.
But for me, like tomorrow now, you know, same time tomorrow. I don't know for every other person, but for me, I might be in church, so like I don't know how, but I feel it's a majority stuff here. So, but just on my end, I feel, and you're not even having close to quarter of the class even on the course. So, but
Okay.
it's tough, but I'd say we can still, happy to if that's
So,
possible. I believe.
Okay.
I think my
Thanks,
contemplations
Francis.
are kind of the fact that I don't think we have our presenters in class already. So I don't know if we have members in the group. Okay, more people are joining in. All right,
Okay,
can
good.
we have the presenters in class today?
Yeah. Even I'm actually coming up for the group 2
Okay.
For group,
presentation. Yeah.
all right. So okay, we will take group two's presentation first. I think since we have more people joining in, we'll take
Yeah,
group two's
exactly.
presentation,
Yeah, great.
and then
So,
as we then we'll take the other presentation.
sure.
Waste any time. So Wisdom, please, you can just go ahead and start your presentation so that we can quickly rush up with class and not waste any time in today's session.
Okay. Thank you. So I don't know. I would need assistance in the sharing of the screen because I'm not like my system. So
Okay, just give me a moment. I will try to do that very soon.
okay. Should I wait or just go ahead?
I think you can just introduce yourself. Let me draw it up first.
Okay. So my name is Wisdom Munachi, and I'm the presenter for the group 2, and I worked for last week, which last week is was exploring AI and big data, and subtopics and implication for data privacy, intellectual property, and ethical AI in modern application. So by way of introduction of the topic, sorry, give me a minute. Let me quickly open it up here.
Okay, give me a moment. Sorry, it's coming up soon. Just trying to get it started. All right, please, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So by way of introduction, we're talking on the exploring the open AI and big data. So by way of introduction, AI is, as we all know, is artificial intelligence and big data transforming the industries worldwide. And what does big data mean? It refers to that's massive data sets that drives insights. And what does AI? AI means AI practically relies on this big data to learn patterns and make predictions. Right, and we can see that in various sectors of our lives, say that's both the healthcare, the finance, the education, the governance, just to mention a few. And moving forward to data privacy in AI and big data. So the next slide. Yep. So data privacy in AI and big data has been a recurring issue because AI systems requires vast amount of personal data, raising concerns about collection, use, security, and potential misuses such as bias and unauthorized access. And AI and big data applications handles information in three ways. That's the collection, the processing, and the storage slash sharing. And what does the collection implies? It means, AI derives data from systems or procedures like the sensor apps, from sensors that are sometimes, facial expressions for maybe just like banks, bank apps where you need to, you know, even our phones, to access them, your facial, you know, eh, your facial is scanned. That's for the sensors. We have apps, right? We have cookies and third parties. So most times, if not all the times, right, consent are usually, imputed in agreements and privacy policies. That's, there are some apps you open up and you would see the terms and condition or the privacy policy. So, and many a times we don't get to read these privacy policies, but all these are embedded in those documents that we to click also for the processing. So this is used for, profiling and also fraud detection, like I mentioned, right? So for example, we have, you to use your facial expression to open up a particular, maybe fintech bank, for example, right? It can detect whether or not, okay, you are the one or you are not. And also, risk bias and unfair exclusion. For the storage and sharing, it also stores in cloud servers, right? Often across borders, and raising controls and jurisdictional concerns. So that's basically what data privacy in AI and big data, implies, such that it handles this in three basic ways, which is the collection, the processing, storage, and sharing. So moving forward to the next slide, legal protection on data privacy. Now, Nigeria as a key example, the legal framework for data privacy is based on the 1999 Constitution, right, and which guarantees the rights to privacy. And we can see that in chapter 4, I think chapter 4, in the sections in chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which guarantees this right to privacy. And more specifically, we have a statute that regulates this data protection, which is known as the Nigeria Data Protection Act of 2023. And it has been stated in section 28 that it provides for the data impact assessment. 34, section 34 writes for the data subjects, that's those that are handling the data of many persons, right? It gives them the right to assess, to correct, and delete. Also, looking at this, we would say, okay, do they now have the omni powers to just check people? So there's also a section that regulates the data subjects themselves, which is where we have data security, the integrity, and the confidentiality, right? All these are documents they sign. And also we have section 40, which is the remedy for breaches, whereas any of these data subjects tend to, breach whatever they've signed. That's the confidentiality policy. There are remedies for this breach. So this is saying basically that in Nigeria, as a key study, our legal framework is, built built to accommodate even data privacy in our laws. And we also have global standards where we have the GDPR, which basically means sorry, give me a second going off. Okay. Yes, which basically means the General Data Protection Regulation. And we also have the CCPA, which means the California Consumer Privacy Act, right? So the GDPR is to regulate for the European Union or Europe, axis or region, and it's cut across consent, minimization, and the accountability, you know, systems set in place. And also for the CCPA, that's for the California Consumer, you know, Protection Act, is for the consumers' rights in data use. So we have, statutes that are regulating, the data privacy of individuals and even the data subjects in Nigeria. And for the, globally, we also have, that in place. Now, moving to the next slide, that's the consequences of weak data protection. Now, there are various
Hello.
consequences.
Hello, Isabel.
Okay.
Yeah, great presentation so far. So I was thinking that I think I should, like, if I could make some comments as you continue your presentation, just to make it I guess more interactive, and
Okay.
also more beneficial as well. So I think I have, I mean, I kind of, so a couple of questions actually came to mind when you were discussing. I think you can go to the last slide, or the slide before the last slide. I think there was a question that came to mind then. And it's not just about, you ask me, asking you the questions directly, but then I think it's going to be for the whole class. It's just, you can go to the initial one as well. I mean, before this one. So it's just some kind of, thought provoking questions, or in terms of, if you've done that's research before, if you've kind of read something relating to that before, then you can talk about what you understand by related concepts, as I'll be asking. Or if not, then I could probably further clarify and then ask you to do more research on that. So I think the issue I saw here, or the point I wanted to make here, I think, is in terms of sorry, let me see. Um, I think it's in terms of collection. I think I was thinking something relating to notice. So I mean, if you look at, let me just come up with a question, surrounding cookies notice generally. I mean, if you look at traditional software, um, so if you look at traditional software, you'd like, it's kind of straightforward in terms of even the processing. Something I'll like, probably I
So,
hope I'll talk about later, maybe at the end of the presentation, is big data itself, and some of the initial issues we've been having with big data
sorry
itself, before,
about that.
even before the coming of.
Sorry,
Yeah,
got a
it's fine.
call.
Yeah, it's fine. You can just put stop. Thank you. I mean, we've been having, I mean, the legal issues that has actually been on the ground even before the coming of, before the proliferation of AI itself, AI systems, including, especially with the coming of, with the advent of Gen AI. You understand? So, I mean, when we're talking about big data, we're talking about, I mean, not necessarily that's the only implementation or the only use of big data is AI. I mean, it's not before before the coming of Gen AI. Of course, big data actually powered AI, artificial intelligence, generally, even before we came to, before the what's called the advanced development of LLMs, large language models. So it's used to be, I mean, it was used for traditional, AI, like fraud detection and the like, just like some of the examples you've mentioned. So hopefully I'll talk about that. I just wanted to make that long, in case we don't have the opportunity to later talk about that. But then going back to my initial question regarding privacy notice, or cookies notice, essentially, I think I will also relate it to privacy notice, is the fact that I also want to link that to its purpose limitation. I think that is related to the next slide. Dennis, can you put up the slide? Are you working on that already? Hello, Dennis. Hello, Dennis. Can you hear me? Okay, so I'll just continue.
Yes, I can. I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, please give me a moment. Let me reshare your slide.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. So we're talking about privacy notice, and then I think I mentioned purpose limitation as well. Um, have you think about the possibility of of AI, Gen AI tools, processing personal data, beyond what you have in the privacy notice? I mean, is that an issue that you've kind of, kind of you came about? I mean, in terms of, in the process of your research? I mean, is that an issue? Anybody can answer. Actually, you can talk about that. And when we're talking about cookies as well, I hope you get that question. Let me reiterate so that you can
Yeah.
note it, and then I want to make another comment so that you can answer those questions together. I mean, if you have an answer to it, and please feel free to share your thoughts, even if it is not. I mean, however it is. Um, so the question again is in terms of privacy notices. I mean, have you thought about the when we're talking about purpose limitation? Purpose limitation is one of the principles of privacy, data protection, and it's stipulate that you can't process personal data beyond the purposes that you've highlighted, for your customers. Probably when you're collecting consent, right? And even the issue of consent, collecting consent is another issue entirely. I mean, when is an appropriate when is consent an appropriate mechanism, for data processing generally? But the question now is that, have you thought about the issue of, because when you're talking about AI now, um, I mean, it's one of the factors of AI. One of the features of AI is in terms of the processing. It could actually probably go beyond what is expected, so to say. So, have you thought about that issue? Have you come about issues or privacy violations or privacy um, issues in terms of processing data beyond what the purpose that has been stated in privacy policies or cookies notice or privacy notices, however you want to call it. And the other thing is in terms of cookies as well. Um, that's one of the technical area that I haven't seen a lot of lawyers looking into. When you're talking about cookies, there are certain data that might actually be processed that you might not regard as personal data, right? So have you thought about the different data components, so to say, that can actually be processed by AI tools and are not necessarily regarded as personal data? And the reason I ask that is because of the legal implication of you processing data that you don't regard as personal data. We have that's the reason why the definition of personal data is one of the major issues. That's the basis, the most foundational aspects of data protection. So the definition of personal data is actually a big issue around different jurisdictions. So I know my questions are kind of intertwined, but I hope you got the question. So I think the first one is regarding how to ensure that you don't go beyond purpose limitation, and then the second one I think is about if there are any components, any data components that's is that might actually be personal data, but it's not necessarily regarded as privacy as personal data.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for making us see it in this light, right? And like maybe that's more reason why we have you here to really have to put us through. But just speaking on what you said earlier, and maybe I could be wrong or not. For the I don't know if I get your question correctly. That's the limitations for privacy notice, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. It's actually related to that. So I didn't know that as a question. Yes, it's related to that. I mean, essentially, yes, it's a kind of limitation of privacy notice, of draft and privacy notice. Privacy notice is ordinarily supposed to be comprehensive and all encompassing, but without divulging too much in terms of data security and confidentiality information, or even I don't want to talk about intellectual property, but I'll say confidentiality, because there's a difference between confidentiality and intellectual property in some ways. So um with that, so so there might actually be some limitations to privacy notice in terms of it's supposed to be comprehensive, but if it doesn't cover everything that it's required to cover, you're ordinarily supposed to mention all the instances where you're going to process personal data without you stating how you're necessarily stating how the sensitive parts of your data environment, or I mean, in terms of how your data infrastructure, your platform is kind of built. So I hope that makes sense, because I'm sorry I'm kind of being a bit technical, but I think that is one thing that is also very important for lawyers to kind of wrap their head around, so to say, because if we're limiting ourselves to just policy development and interpretation, we might not be able to link the connection between the policy we're trying to create and interpret and implement with the technical um, know-how, technical development. So we're ordinarily supposed to integrate that policy into, the into technology. Okay, so if we don't understand some of these things, not necessarily that we need to understand how to we need to not on there's a difference between understanding and then doing it itself. So you might understand software development lifecycle, what it entails, and how you can help technology teams or engineering teams to integrate some legal requirements, we along that line of product development, which is also software development life cycle. Sorry, I'm speaking too fast. I also want us to be quick about this, and I mean, there's a lot of points to really touch on. So essentially, what I'm saying is, just like you said, taking it from what you said last, the limitation of privacy notice. So that's a general limitation, a general issue ordinarily. But when we now come to AI, um, maybe because we have a lot of issues, including shadow AI, companies and extending to the fact that there might actually be some data that AI is processing but even if the AI that you're using in your company, are there certain data that is being processed that you don't know? And that takes us to the product life cycle of developing AI itself as well. I mean, in terms of, but don't let me go deep into that. Of course, we're talking about big data. We're talking about open AI as well, in terms of how probably ChatGPT came to be, or how when we're talking about open AI, and we're talking about the main product, which is ChatGPT. Essentially we're also looking at other Gen AI tools like um is it Meta, right? We're talking about Gemini, Claude, and Grok and the likes. We're just using OpenAI as a form of case study. Okay, so sorry, I'm still going deeper into this, but then back to your question. Yeah, we're talking about limitation of privacy notice, but or cookies notice, but particularly regarding AI now. You get so how do you kind of, I mean, have you thought of issue, because it's foundational. I mean, in terms of when you are, one of the things that you need to do when you're starting a privacy operating or operationalizing privacy. What I mean by that is we have privacy frameworks, right? I mean, the NDPC or the NDPA rather is a data protection framework in Nigeria. So what I'm saying is that if when you're trying to implement, that's what I meant by operationalizing as well. If you're trying to implement and trying to execute, trying to look at the privacy requirements in the law, and trying to implement it, trying to comply with the data protection provisions in the law. One of the major processes is actually you drafting a privacy notice, right? Um so how do you ensure that you're doing your work right, by putting all these things together? How do you, probably the question I'm asking is, what are the mechanisms, what are the ways that you can ensure that, of course, you need to look at the issues, I mean, the challenges. That, I think that's the first question. You need to look at the challenges that you need to kind of deal with when you're writing a privacy notice for an AI system. You get so I think that's the so what are the so after identifying the risk, after identifying the issues, so what are the solutions for you to kind of beat that issue, kind of solve that issue. You get
Okay.
maybe I yeah. So please go ahead if you
Okay.
have
Yeah,
any.
thank you,
Yeah.
sir. So like you really explained a lot, and yeah, I think to an extent I understand. Yeah, yeah. But okay, let me just say it and just continue with the presentation because of
Mhm.
time. So I'll
Yeah.
just pinpoint one of the you know issues of this limitation of privacy notice, most especially in AI. So I think one of the issues there is having to understand this how would I say it now, like the plain explanation of what really goes into the data, because I think I was reading an article on something, and it was stating that some developers who are into this AI, they even though they are the one who built this, they train this, but they can't really explain you know how this is really processed,
Black
right?
box.
And
Right.
yes, and I think that's one of the issue, but I think one of the ways that we can get to solve this is such that those who are in regulation of because aside the laws, it is wanting to have a law. It's another thing for it to be implemented or interpreted, like you
Mhm.
just said. But I think one of the resolve that we can adopt to have this being solved is where it's whatever the those who are regulating or building or in charge of this AI stuff that are that requires big data or data of personal data, right, should have
Mhm.
to explain it explicitly. For example, right, have that for example, now when I was using ChatGPT, I actually prompted it that delete all my history of what I've been you know having to message prompt it before then, and it was like everything deleted. But I think I was that time, and it recalled one of a particular phrase that I'd used like almost 3 months ago, and I was like, in my mind, did I not prompt this thing to delete it? But I think one of the thing is that you want them to sign transparency documents is another thing for them, because I think it's a one-sided control. They can tell you that they are doing this, but then it's still on their own end whether or not
Yeah.
to. And I think
So
one
the,
of the things that we can bring in is where all these are those um people don't take cognizance of this. So they should be specific that okay, this data that you know you imputed is going to be used for this. For example, if I'm using a medical AI platform and I've asked it a lot of questions about my medical life, right? And I
Mhm.
then come to prompt it and say delete all my history because of certain listing. Then each before that time, or before I even open the AI prompting or app rather, it should state that whatever for example, it should just state that okay, we use your data to improve our services. For example, your medical
Mhm.
records are used to train this AI model. Then if all these are explicitly stated, then we can now know okay, there is something that they are being binded. But many a times these things are we don't take cognizance to this thing, and they are just like generic notice. We just open it and begin to prompt it. But if we can have those who in charge of this AI, such that they can, you know, specify that this your particular, information that you are, prompting this AI is used to train this AI model, then
Mhm.
I think that would be one of the resolve,
Yeah.
you know, to this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think no, you know actually, I think that's excellent, and it's a really a great way to approach these, and I think that goes deep into one of the major AI principle, which is transparency. So I mean, it's especially when we're looking at AI governance, or we're looking at the privacy aspects of developing AI. One of the major issues is actually training AI with personal data, and we already know. I mean, if you've read when you're looking at privacy issues relating to AI, especially Gen AI, you would probably have read the one of the DPAs in the EU. They released a guideline, or a kind of publication saying that LLM doesn't store personal data. But one of the risks there is what you said. Even if, I mean, you're telling the AI general straight um like straightforward to delete your data. You could of course, and one of the other issues I also wanted to mention is in terms of data subjects request or data subjects fulfilling data subjects request, which you might find a lot of issues there. I mean, when if we're talking about traditional software, you can reach out to companies and tell them. I mean, without the implementation or the integration of AI, you can tell the company to delete your data or for you. You want to access the personal data that they process about you, and then they have obligation to kind of to fulfill that request. You understand? But then when it comes to AI, that's quite difficult because, of course, maybe you would have come across the fact that it's not, or it's difficult, if not almost impossible now, to delete personal data, um, from an AI model without you retraining it. So we have a lot of issues, but the major thing, even though if we don't have a fully effective solution, the best thing actually is approaching some form of effective solutions, and one of it is actually transparency. If you look at, I mean, if you're visiting almost all Gen AI tools, they will tell you that the tool is not accurate, right? That you might actually get wrong information sometimes, and that is one of the method they can also use when it comes to AI, and that is, I think that is in form of when you're talking about information generally. Maybe you getting misinformation or disinformation, right? So that is one of the method of kind of reducing it. It might not be effectively or totally completely um workable when it comes to privacy, but I think that is one way of looking at how you can really mitigate the problems or the challenges you might actually have with generally. So just to stop and so that you can continue with your presentation, one of the issues I have, especially when it comes to this particular slide, is in terms of the Data Protection Act, the Nigeria Data Protection Act. Is this really enough? Is it really um yeah, does it really solve the problem of privacy when it comes to AI systems? You get, so I believe they lot, and that's why we have the EU AI Act. You understand, the GDPR is not enough to um solve those challenges that we have with AI systems. So that's another thing. That's another area we need to talk about when we're talking about policy creation or policy developments in terms of how we're going to create a policy, maybe an AI policy. We have an AI, a national AI strategy, right, in Nigeria, but maybe some people say the next thing is actually an AI policy. But then, is it the right time to really have a kind of AI act as well in Nigeria? So those are the things that we really need to look at, or we also need to kind of think about. I know we're talking about an open AI. We're talking about we're looking at it globally. We also need to look at it from the local perspective as well, if we really want to develop our AI ecosystem locally. So please just
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, I was like, okay, thank you so much, Sai, for the interaction. And I'll just rush up with the presentation. But before then, moving to that, like you said, is it really enough in Nigeria as as a I would say that one of the things I know about law is that it evolves with man. So before now, we never had anything as the NDPA Act of 2023, and I think now moving forward in this our system, or this our Nigeria as a key example. The act does not really touch a whole lot, and I think that's why we also have the global standards that still we can use to, like, checkmate, okay, are we, because those on those other end, they are fast developing than we are. So that's why they still in it for us to amend subsequently as we evolved. But moving forward quickly, moving to the consequence of weak data protection. This is just speaking basically that, okay, when um the systems that are put in place to protect this data are not strong enough, what can it lead to? So first off, we have the identity theft and fraud. A lot of persons can go around this, and because of the weak system put in place, it can lead to this identity theft and fraud, even financial loss, privacy violations, and manipulations of behavior. Right. So I'm moving to the intellectual property and AI ownership. The next slide. Um, so Gen AI is like the chat GPT and raises new copyright issues. So this is basically saying, okay, how can AI actually have ownership of whatever it generates? So that this is an issue between AI and intellectual property. And we can see in the case of Section 9 sub 3 of the Copyright Designs and Patent Act of 1988, right, where it attributes authorship of computer-generated work to the arranger. So this is saying that the copyright is attributed to the one who you know generated the work, right, and not to what's the word? Not to the AI itself, because the AI cannot own or have a copyright of whatever it is generating. Also, in the case of Lee Yun Kai and Lee Yan Chong, in they treated AI as a tool, whereas users can impute, they can have their own copyright. So whatever it is, I generate with my idea, the AI is just to enhance the idea, not to particularly own, whatever I am, you know, putting out there for it to generate. So I'm moving straight to the copyright infringement risk. So one of, you know, the, yeah, moving. So copyright, I don't know, okay, yes, jump to the slide. Train data, that's the AI model scrap copyrighted, works. What is it saying? That it can actually, you know, um, generate exactly what has been, generated by someone who has copyrighted, you know, his or her work. So for example, I have an image that I've trademarked, and then I ask the AI. It's even, a case in it will be, that's the case in the next slide, where I can, put in, ask the AI to generate something that somebody has already, you know, you know, built or created from the scratch, and it can just replicate it in seconds or minutes. And that's one of the risks of this copyright. So the person on the other end will be thinking, okay, this is unique, even though he has actually trademarked it, or put some copyright, law registration on it, but the AI itself can actually replicate it, and sometimes even much better than what has been created by the original. So moving to the next slide, the trademark and moral rights. So AI can actually generate branded logos, like I said earlier on, images, which is an infringement on existing trademark and likely to confuse certain persons. So you on your own end, you might just be, okay, you can just come up with an idea and you can just ask the AI to create something like that, not knowing that someone has, is that particular idea is in use and has been copyrighted or trademarked. So this is, AI can actually in some extent be a an infringement on those existing trademark. And AI misuse can also dilute famous marks. So this is not, it is not subjective, it is basically objective on the user. So you on your own end, that, okay, this particular um design or has been trademarked, and you on your own end decided to replicate that, having the knowledge. And that's what I can see in the case of this Hems and Roth Roth Rothschild, where somebody replicated a design, right, imitating a particular bag. We are all conversant with that brand, the Hems brand. And then I think it was the person actually paid the damage. I think it was up to 138,000, dollars, because of having to replicate that particular design that was already on that branded bag that the person has been using in time. So what's this stating? That um individuals, even we as individuals and Nigeria as diaspora, you know, authors have, the right to retain, that, their trademark, their, the integrity of their designs or whatever they came up with, right? And AI generated, generation of that particular thing can be an infringement, or is actually an infringement on those particular trademarked or copyrighted, designs. So moving to the next slide, ethical concerns in AI. So AI must not only be lawful but also ethical. And I think some of us were conversant with cybersecurity guys. It's not just about you being following the law, signing confidentiality or integrity document. It's actually you also being ethical, because we know that the use of this can be it can be misused rather. So it's not just need to be lawful, but also what ethical, and the the accepted principles which can which AI must actually adopt to be ethical in quotes, which is the transparency, where the users should know when the AI is involved and how it works. So those building the AI there should be systems where okay, this, like what we just spoke about earlier, where this is stated that okay, this particular results that we are generating for you can have errors. You can see that in ChatGPT that this might not be totally correct, right? So that's an aspect of transparency. You've also accountability, where the the clear assignment of the responsibility when harms occur. So sometimes where you would need to some funny persons can tend to ask the AI to generate some nude or sexual generations, and the AI would specifically tell you they can't. So that's it's having that responsibility. To fairness also, algorithm, but I think there was a period before now where having to open your phone, where it needed your facial expression. Sometimes it was so bad that certain devices, it can two faces can open that particular phone, especially when they are now twins. But currently I don't think that is happening again, because it has been put in place such that to avoid um it can avoid um those kind of fraudulent, and also for certain persons that okay, you were once dark, then you now became fair. So it's the ethical concerns in AI such that it will regulate and it's not bring that discrimination, or such that okay, I am actually the one, or maybe your thumbprint, you had an injury there, and then just so that's what being ethical, the ethical concerns in AI. Sorry, I'm rushing. It's also respect for rights. That's for the privacy, the dignity, and the freedom. That's the autonomy which must be upheld. The next slide, which is the challenges to ethical AI. So like our speaker just said, the black box problem, where sometimes the AI decision often lacks explainability, where it's not specifically stated. And that when I was speaking about this was where I was coming from, where the one of the resolve we can have is where this AI will specifically state whatever decision it is making, to explain that okay, this particular thing is taking this data for training this AI. So I think that's one of the issues when I was talking about that earlier. And also one of the challenges is bias and discrimination, right? Where replicates can use this AI which is not supposed to be so. Also manipulation, where we have deep fake, where people can cut people faces and use it to do a video that can be a blackmail or something like a cyberbullying or something like that. So that's one of the challenges the AI, challenges to ethical AI, and also weak enforcement, right? Like we said, and I stated that even as we evolve, right, laws will be put more in place, and that's why we also have global standards that are used to checkmate even the laws we have in our diaspora. Moving to the next slide, that's the policy and practical solutions. I think this is where some of the results can come in. That's our legal reform. So the Copyright Act 2022 needs to be amended to define AI generated works. I don't think that is currently, adopted in the Copyright Act of 2022. So one of the resolve is such that it would, be amended. Also licensing requirements for training data and also the introduction of copyright clear data set. So it is no time to extend that. So transparency, like I stated earlier on, where everything that is being done is explained why it is being done. Also ethical standard and the enforcement, where it will strengthen both our NCC, our data protection bureau, and our judicial capacity. So the conclusion, next slide. So, yeah. So AI and big data are, like we said, speaking verbatim, AI and big data are double-edged swords, and they enable innovation, efficiency, and personalization, but they raise serious risks. That's examples like privacy violation, ownership disputes, and ethical dilemmas. So the way forward is that we balance this innovation that we are having with the regulations we have in place, and to strengthen our Nigeria law, which are diaspora, and ensure this fairness and accountability and respect for the users' rights. And the future of AI in Nigeria and globally depends on our legal clarity, our ethical responsibility, and public trust. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I took so much time. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that great presentation. I actually have to go and very shortly, so I will just give a couple of comments. I know we have another presentation. Are we ready to have that presentation now as well, or I'm looking at, because I have to go in a couple of minutes. I'm not sure if we should come back to have that presentation, or we can. I don't know if this has probably covered the field, everything that is actually supposed to be presented in that second slides, and or if we want to postpone it to probably before we start the next class. You can just let me know what you kind of prefer. But then regarding this, let me just quickly give my comment, because I need to really go fast. Um, so I think the intellectual aspect and then the ethical AI aspect as well. I think one way to also kind of bring all these things together. I mean, you've spoken about some privacy, data protection, intellectual property, and then the ethical AI. One way to bring all these things together sometimes is called I mean, you would have heard about AI governance or responsible AI, especially when it has to do with ethical AI, because the implementation of ethical AI, we have ethical AI principles. I really hope I didn't say anything regarding that, but I really hope that I mean, if you came across it, probably you might have actually included it, or maybe you've discussed it initially. I mean, in the previous classes. I'm actually talking about AI governance frameworks, starting from the EU AI Act, and then going to other frameworks like the ISO 42001 and the NIST AI RMF, which also covers the legal aspects of AI generally, to a large extent, I'd say. I'm not the intellectual property aspects, not so clear, but when you're talking about privacy, data protection, it's actually one of the principles. When you look at the especially the NIST AIRMF, it's one of the values, or one of the characteristics of building responsible AI. So hello, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, great.
So
Sorry.
I don't think we'll be
Sorry.
able to take presentations from group one. I said I don't think we'll
Okay.
be able to take presentations from. We don't have the presenters in
Oh,
class.
okay then. Okay, nice. So let me just round up with this. So one great area to actually take this from, so that you don't have all these, because there's actually a lot of things I wanted to say, but as I said, let me just round up with these. I also wanted to comment on the intellectual property initially, but then I don't have much time. But um, I think it's well covered. I mean, the issues that we really need to look at regarding when it comes to IP and AI is really well covered, in the slides. But then when it comes to ethical AI, as I said, you implementing it, executing it in practical sense is actually through the use of these frameworks. It's really, because there's a lot of things involved when it comes to, building AI responsibly, and that's includes from the ideation parts. When I talk about the product life cycle or this software development life cycle, it's actually this affects AI as well, because we have the data sourcing, we have the building of the AI models. This can actually form part of the development of the AI itself, right? And then we have the deployment. Then we have the use by other companies as well. So that's why if you look at the EU Act, I think it's a very great framework to really kind of look at how AI is really being developed and at which points you're actually going to need legal compliance, so to say. So because I think the players are actually kind of categorized into four, right? So we have deployers, and then uh we have the builders. It's four, but mainly we have the builders, the people kind of building AI tools, and then we have the people that are actually going to also use it, so to say. I don't have much time. I can't go deep into that. But another thing regarding ethical AI that you really need to look at now, I think one of the best resource out there is actually the National Institute for Standards and Technology. That's NIST, AIRMF, Risk Management Framework, Risk Management Framework. You really need to look at that. It tells you these different stages and the characteristics, the values that's really need to build into these AI tools. So that's when it comes to the ethical AI aspects. And there are some legal requirements that are also kind of intertwined or integrated into those requirements. So I think that will be my assignment to you all to look at those three different frameworks. We have other legal frameworks. The main legal framework is the EU AI Act, but then other standards, other global or industry standards that you can actually look at is the ISO for 2001. And I mean, I've mentioned this before. I think even in our last course, I mentioned it as well. So I'm always particular about those things because they really give you a comprehensive look at this area of AI compliance. So I think I'll just leave it there. Sorry, I can't go further than this. I need to really go now. Hopefully, in our next class or subsequently, we get to discuss further than this. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dennis.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for your comments and for the little interactions you had, with us. You were able to point out to a few things that were very, very expedient. I don't know if it will be possible for us to work out like another session where maybe we can give more essence or light to the course as a whole. But we will do well to reach out to you concerning that, sir. So the mentees, thank you so much for coming to class. Like I said initially, the class wasn't supposed to last long, right? It's supposed to be an hour class because Mr. Ridwan has to go and pray. All right. So with that, we've actually come to the end of this session. If there's any updates as to how classes are going to be like, we'll do well to keep you in the loop, right? And then for the tax for the week, please let's do well to try to get on it. Class will still hold on Friday. We will still have our week 5 class on Friday. So please let's do well to be on top of our tax and get ready for session on Friday. We once again sincerely apologize for the inconvenience with the shifting of dates, right? The shifting of class from Friday to now, several complications, but we hope that you are able to bear with us. I'm sure as time goes on, right, this will not necessarily repeat itself again. So thank you everyone for being here, right? I'm sure you must have learned a thing or two. Like I said, we'll look forward to facilitating something with Mr. Ridwan so that if there are ways we can get him to discuss more within the lines of, just open AI and then big data, we would have that, right? But for now, we have come to the end of today's class. We will do well to see you all on Friday. Please make sure to be present on Friday, right? We really, really want to have you guys present on Friday, right? Class on Friday is going to hold, right? So please let's make sure to be available and let's make sure to keep up with our tasks. Thank you, everyone, and good night.